say we don't give plaques to quitters? That's funny. You could probably come up with one, though. We don't give plaques to quitters. We don't give plaques to quitters.
Yeah, that's what John said.
It's funny. That's funny. I think it's great.
And he told me he's going to circulate petitions again. I thought he was quitting. He's teasing me.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Personnel Committee meeting to order, and I'd like to see if there's anyone that would like to share some public comment. Seeing none, we're going to start out with appointments for Children, Youth, and Family Advisory Boards. We have two. Maria Derdinger, and her resume is attached, and this is for submitting the following individual for the appointment to Children, Youth, and Family Service Board, Family Advisory Board, excuse me.
So moved.
Okay, and the second one is, thank you, the second one is a reappointment to the Children, Youth, and Family Advisory Board, Penny S. Van Tassel. I'm looking for a motion. So
Motion.
Moved. Any questions? The resumes are attached. Thank you. The second one is the General Purpose Authority. And this is for the General Purpose Authority individual for appointment to the General Purpose Authority, Kenneth M. Kraft. Mr. Kraft's term will begin January 18th and end December 31st, 2024. He will be taking the position formerly held by Mark Chabot. Looking for a motion.
Motion. Oh, can I move if I'm on the GPA? Too?
As long as you're on
Let
this
him on.
committee. Are you on this committee?
Yeah.
And you are, so
I'm on
yes.
both.
Okay.
Nope. Oh, no. We make sure we don't get paid on that one now. That's why we're doing it.
Okay. Any questions? The next one is Housing Authority. This is for appointment to the Housing Authority Board, and it's Donald Flad Jr. Mr. Flad is being considered to fulfill Mike Freeney's term. Mr. Freeney resigned his position in January. Mr. Flad will begin January 25th, and his term will expire on February 9th, 2021. Looking for a motion to move. Okay.
Second.
Thank you. So moved. The next one's the Industrial Development Board. Following reappointment to the Industrial Development Board, Marilyn Lieberman. Ms. Lieberman is being considered for a 5-year term to begin March 18th, 2019 and end March 17th, 2024. Her resume is attached. Any questions? For a motion to move.
Motion.
Swargo Hefner.
Just keep it up.
Okay, so moved. Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. We have 6. Individual as a citizen representative to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, John E. Gregory. McGorry, I apologize, Mr. McGorry, is being considered for a 4-year term to begin January 25th, 2019, and to end December 31st, 2022. Mr. McGorry will be taking the position formerly held by Mr. Gordon Campbell. The next one
Mr.
is...
Chairman, may I raise a question on that? For
Absolutely.
Mr. McGorry, the address is listed as 1 Bethlehem Plaza, Suite 902. Is that a home address or an office?
Let's look at his resume. What does his resume show?
It doesn't-
Same thing. Is he in the crowd tonight? Say again.
He says, I live in historic Bethlehem.
Okay. Is that
Okay.
okay? All right. Thank you. Okay, the next one is an appointment to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission as an elected official, Suzanne Lawless. Ms. Lawless is being considered for a 1-year term beginning January 25th, 2019, and to end December 31st, 2019. She will be taking the position previously held by John Diakonis.
Diakianis.
Thank you. Diakianis. Her resume is attached. Moving to the next one. Citizen reappointment of a citizen representative to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, Charles Elliott. Mr. Elliott is being considered for a 4-year term to begin January 25th, 2019, and to end December 31st, 2022. This will be a reappointment for Mr. Elliott. Any questions on Mr. Elliott? Okay, might as well get through them all here. Individual reappointment for a citizen representative. Leslie Dreisbach-Williams. Ms. Dreisbach-Williams is being considered for a 4-year term for a citizen representative to begin January 25th, 2019, and to end December 31st, 2022. This will be a reappointment. Resume is attached. Any questions? Next is a Lehigh. So move. Oh, I was going to just move them all together.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. All right. Well, we'll do them at the end, I guess, too. All right. We just want to make sure we dot all our I's and cross all our T's and make sure everybody has any questions answered. Lehigh Valley Planning Commission as an elected official, Janelle Connolly. Ms. Connolly is being considered for a 1-year term to begin January 25th, 2019, and to end December 31st, 2019. Her resume is attached, and if there's any questions. The next one is Lehigh Valley Planning Commission as an elected official, Pamela Pearson. Ms. Pearson is being considered for a 1-year term to begin February 22nd, 2019, and end December 31st, 2019. Her resume is attached, quite lengthy. And that's all 6 of them.
Motion to put all of them forward.
Okay. It's okay, so moved. All right. Moving on to Open Space Advisory Board. The following reappointment for Open Space Advisory Board. Victoria Pristash is being considered for a reappointment for a 2-year term to begin March 20th, 2019 and end March 19th, 2021 with a resume attached. And there's one more, a reappointment for the Open Space Advisory Board for R. Michael Topping is being considered for a reappointment of a 2-year term to begin March 20th, 2019 and end March 19th, 2021 to the Open Space Advisory Board. And the resume is attached. Any questions? If not, looking for a motion to move.
Motion.
Okay, thank you.
Just go boom, boom.
Okay. So moved. Personnel Appeals Board. We have 4. The first one is an appointment to the Personnel Appeals Board, James Irwin. Mr. Irwin is being considered for a 2-year term to begin February 4th, 2019, and to end February 3rd, 2021. Mr. Irwin is taking the position previously held by Thomas Foster. And the second one is, and his resume is attached. The second one is an appointment to the Personnel Appeals Board. Anthony Pristash. Mr. Pristash is being considered for a 2-year term beginning February 4th, 2019, and to end February 3rd, 2021. Mr. Pristash is taking the position previously held by John Daly, Jr. And his resume is attached. Any questions?
There's a third one on the same page as Irwin.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's 4, actually. I will keep going here. An individual appointment to the Personnel Appeals Board, Thomas Schlegel. Mr. Schlegel is being considered for a 2-year term beginning February 4th, 2019, and to end February 3rd, 2021. He will be taking the position formerly held by Yvonne Johnston Milligan. You know what? I'm wondering if there's one on the backside.
No, they're together.
One under Mr. Irwin.
Oh, there is one under, thank you. Okay. And we did skip that one, so we will go back to that one, and that will make 4. So there's a second one to the Personnel Appeals Board, and it is, okay, it's Carly Biggs Sabia, Esquire. Ms. Biggs is being considered for a 2-year term to begin February 4th, 2019, and to end February 3rd, 2021. Ms. Sabia is taking the position previously held by Timothy Hinkle. So all 4 of them, any questions? If not, looking to move?
Move.
Thank you.
Second.
So moved. And Revenue Appeals Board, we have individual appointment to the Revenue Appeals Board. Ronald, can someone help me with that? Thank you. Lutz. Mr. Lutz is being considered for the position to finish Robert Scott's term beginning January 18th, 2019, and to end December 31st, 2019. The resume is attached. If there's no questions, there's a question.
Yeah, there is a question with Mr. Lutz. He was a real estate assessor for Northampton County, and I guess my question or concern is that if someone would potentially be appealing a property that he had previously appraised, doesn't that become an issue?
Was that a question for the solicitor?
It's more rhetorical. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one, I don't know.
The board has their own solicitor, and they could advise Mr. Lutz on that. The assessors that I supervise in my office specifically have different areas that they cover. I don't recall what Mr. Lutz's area was. He is in the audience. He could probably describe that to you. But
I've been on hold for the other line, but it wasn't working again.
but he would have a very limited number of parcels that he would be excluded from.
I would suggest he would speak to the solicitor, and he may have to abstain on certain properties, but I'm not sure. No, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, yeah, frankly, I don't even know if it is. Maybe potentially, but.
Questions?
Can you just state your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Ronald Lutz.
Thank you. And there's a question.
Right,
that
and
Mr.
I'll just repeat it. I think that my concern or question is you've worked here as a real estate assessor. There's no doubt in my mind you're qualified, but is there the potential for you to have to face someone who is appealing a property that you have assessed in the past, and would that potentially be an issue?
No, not at all. No, I expected that something like this might come up, so any properties that I've assessed that would come in an appeal, I would abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, it's automatic. I just wouldn't want to jeopardize anything.
All right, well, that's what I wanted to know. And
I have no problem with that at all.
yeah, and again, I certainly you're qualified to be on this board, but it just, I wouldn't want someone who appeals to have a potential for further appeals
Neither would I.
beyond this. So,
Neither would I.
okay. So as long as you're willing to abstain from properties which you've been involved in the original assessment.
Absolutely,
I
and you can put that in writing if you want. I have no problem.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you, and thank you for your time for doing these jobs at your services. Okay, so other than that question, can we move this then? Does anybody have an entertainment to move this to county, full council? Motion to move to full council? Okay, so moved. Anything else for personnel? Does anybody else have anything for personnel? Okay, I have two more. Review of the district attorney. Okay. So we have, at this request of John Morganelli, the district attorney, please consider the following requests: to eliminate one assistant district attorney part-time position and create one assistant district attorney full-time position, CE3. Elimination of the following position and the creation of a full-time position. And Mr. Morganelli is here to address council.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Thank you, President Heckman. Yeah, pursuant to my memo that I forwarded over to the executive and members of county council on January 14th, I was surprised this year that District Attorney William Matt, Assistant DA, who's been with me actually since my first day in office, indicated he was resigning effective January 31st. He's been a part-time ADA. As I have done in the past 27 years, trying to move the office into a full-time posture, this gave me an opportunity to ask council to allow me to transform that and change that into a full-time ADA position. When I took office back in 1992, I believe we had 13 assistant DAs and 11 of them were part-time. Now we have, I think, 21 assistant DAs and we're down to 2 part-time, and I essentially have replaced them over time through attrition. And it's really necessary because this job really cannot be done on a part-time basis. Mr. Cusick made some comments in the last issue about conflicts. One of the main problems over the years has been conflicts of interest with part-time DAs, and the DA himself was part-time back before I was DA, and we've eliminated all that, going to full-time assistants. Plus, it allows our office to take a more aggressive stance on lots of issues besides just the prosecution of cases. You probably read this morning that we're moving under the nuisance law to close down a nuisance bar, and we've done that. So really, it's in the interest of the county to have a full-time staff. And I'm hopeful, actually, that this year I'll be presenting my last budget to county council for next year, 2020, for the next district attorney. And I'm hopeful that we will, when I leave, that perhaps next year we'll have a full-time office completely. I think that's the way it should be and the way it should be done. So I asked the county executive, and his office was kind enough to run the numbers for your consideration. We're talking about a difference of $30,000 to $35,000, which I believe that we'll have in my budget as is. And if I don't have it at the end of the year, I'm leaving anyway. So the next year I'll have this problem with you. No, only kidding, only kidding. But I am confident that we can
Making it better.
We can find the money. We can find the money.
Is the starting salary for the new DA going to be less because they don't have seniority?
Well, it's the part-time is in its own separate scale. So Mr. Matz's salary as of now is $50,292. The part-time job, which I requested, has its own scale, and the starting salaries, as noted on the document prepared by the Mr. McClure's office, is $60,266. When you add the benefits in, we're talking a difference of $30,000. So to answer your question, it's a full-time position, so the salary's higher, but quite frankly, it's only $10,000 higher in the base salary. When you add in benefits, it'll cost the county about $30,000 more. Having a
Actually, wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That leads me to another question.
Yep.
Is that salary enough to lure somebody from practicing?
Yeah, well, let me say this. Over the years, we've upgraded these salaries. They were a lot worse than they are today. It's hard to get good quality folks in here. Now, there's two positions in the DA's salary scale. One is considered a higher starting salary. I asked for the lower salary. I've asked for the lower one, which is entry-level position, contemplating hiring someone that's not like a lawyer for 20 years. We have someone in mind who I think will fit into this salary range if it's approved by council. But the whole issue of salaries is something that we've stood here for many years debating with members of council. And could it be higher? Yeah, I think we would attract better people. But we've been very lucky, Councilwoman Zirinsky, that we have been able to keep good folks with, even though these salaries are not where they should be for lawyers. But I'm not asking for you guys to go and reinvent the wheel here. I'm satisfied that the structure right now at least gives me a little bit of leeway to hire someone at a starting salary who might be only out of law school a couple of years. It's not a terrible salary when you add in the benefits which the county offers, which is a lot better, I might add, to some of our surrounding counties. You'd be surprised. I do get applicants from other counties like Monroe, Carbon, Berks, who think our salaries are pretty good compared to what they're doing. So, I would like to see it tweaked higher, but, we all have, you have a lot of other expenses you have to deal with, and I'll leave that for the next DA to argue with you all.
Okay.
Well, thank you. We're working on it as of today. I think we'll take quick action on that. And, we've done this before. I've had, I think, at least 6 establishments that we've closed through the nuisance action because of our petitions filed here. And we work closely with the LCE also. But it's not an easy lift, but I think, we'll be successful on this one, hopefully.
Any more questions for Mr. Morganelli?
Thank you for coming. This is a completely separate issue. Later this evening, we're going to discuss the Forensic Center, and we have been. Would you like to maybe give us your opinion as to your involvement, and do you think that we've adequately addressed the needs there in terms of your office?
Well, I haven't really been following that too closely, quite frankly. I know Coroner Lysick has a vision, which I think is a good one. I think the ultimate goal here is to have Northampton County somewhat self-sufficient, because we work closely with the Forensic Center in Lehigh County and also with the RIC, but it costs us. I mean, I pay them X dollars every year out of my budget, and I can't give you the numbers, but it was approved last year. I think it's like 40-some thousand, and it goes up every year for the use of the Petzl Center. And also with the RIC now, because of the loss of gaming funds, which the sheriff was able to use to help us to have access to that, I think that the long-term plan is some self-sufficiency that will now allow Northampton County to have these facilities, particularly the basic plan that's been offered by the county executive, I think, and the coroner together, probably offers some blueprint for the future, so that we're not held hostage, because quite frankly, if those numbers go up and we really need to use those facilities, what are we going to do if we don't have some place to go? So I haven't been following it only because I'm not opposed to it. It's ultimately your call in terms of that, but I trust the judgment of the coroner. Mr. McClure's office has been working with Coroner Lysick on that, and just following it from a distance, it appears to me that it's in the long-term interest of the county and the DA's office.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Along with that, I guess then, tailing off that question, as a DA, and the DA is going forward with crime fighting and what's involved now in the science, you would say that we've batted around it more for years in Forensic Center, but the crime fighting aspect of it would you say is a major could potentially be a major benefit?
I think it will be. I think it will be. And as I said, we have to take certain steps in order to keep pace. And obviously, everything costs money, and I leave those judgments to you as the elected legislative body. If we had all of our wishes, we'd have the whole ball of wax. But from what I've seen in the following in the press and talking briefly with Zach Lysick about it, because he ran this stuff by me early on, and I told him I had no objection to what he was doing, but it wasn't my desire to come here and lobby for it, because I think it's more his project, and but I think it's a good idea to get us started in that direction.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your consideration on this request. Thank you.
Any other questions on this appointment here, from the full-time, from the part-time to the full-time? Motion to move?
Move it.
Second.
Okay, so moved. So moved. Count. Thank you very much. Thank you. One more here. We have the personnel request for the geographical informational system. Request from Baron, Director of Fiscal Affairs. Please consider the following requests to upgrade one GIS Tech 2 position full-time RU23 to one GIS specialist position full-time RU25. So we're moving from a 323 to a 25.
Correct. There's a small typo in the memo at the top. It says 0.5 FTEs. Just so you guys are clear, council members are clear, we are upgrading one full-time position. So we're not changing, we're not eliminating a part-time or eliminating anything. This is just an upgrade. This is actually the one part that council needs to approve of sort of an overhaul of the GIS office. What we are doing is creating a position from one of the Tech 2s that we are upgrading. The position is occupied. There's an incumbent in the office who can do the work. We're going to be utilizing technology more with mapping and utilizing the services of GIS to push more maps and to use mapping within the several departments of the county and for the public good. It's the way that GIS is going. This has been a long idea that's been kicked around quite a bit by Joe Lakey, who is here in the audience. And this is step one that will allow us to get to where we need to be within GIS. While there's more money, we do have the money in the budget. We currently have an opening. It's been a long time vacancy till we figured out what we were going to do with the office. And our anticipation is, since we have a GIS Tech 2 in the budget, we probably aren't going to hire a GIS Tech 2. We're going to hire a Tech 1, which is at a lower grade, so then that person can get trained and then eventually be promoted into a GIS Tech 2. So that's the game plan for the office right now.
So $2,359,000 difference, correct?
Correct, and I won't need any more money in the budget for that.
Question?
I guess what I'll ask is what I always do in January. Why wasn't this included as part of the budget last year that we passed a month ago?
So there were a lot of plans being kicked around with regard to how we were going to handle GIS. And at the time, we wanted to make sure in the budget we proposed what was currently happening, especially in August, October, when we were putting the budget together. But then as we passed the budget, the new year happened, and we were analyzing positions we needed to post based on vacancies. Joe brought this plan to us. It was a good idea. We made sure that we had the money in the current budget, which we knew we did, and now we're going to make the office more user-friendly.
Any other questions for Mr. Barron, or any questions for anyone? Okay. Excuse me? Question?
Is this new is this upgrade going to allow for Is this new upgrade going to allow for the PIC, the Pipeline Information Center, to get up and running?
Well, so we have certain applications that we're using when we get information. We're able to load more data into GIS, and then those custom maps can be made and placed out online, and apps can be utilized. This year, with some of the savings from the 2018 budget, we did buy an application suite that allows us to create custom apps for those types of things. So yes, this person is going to be looking at online maps and interactive maps so that we can publish them to the web for people who have specific needs for them, like the pipeline information and folks who are looking at rails and trails, the polling place locator that we introduced this year, those types of things.
Okay, great. I will tell Priscilla.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Barron. Appreciate it. Motion to move this to full council.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moved. Tomorrow night. That's it for the personnel requests and the review of the county executive's appointments and reappointments. Is there anybody in the audience tonight that did get appointed or reappointed, or any of the requests that would like to talk to council or say a few words? If not, we'd like to thank everybody for their service, for their volunteerism, and for helping the county. Any other questions for personnel? If not, we're going to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Heckman. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to financial committee.
That's you. That's you.
That's you.
Oh, we have a new chair of the financial committee. We do have a new chair of the financial committee.
Stop.
It's on the website.
It is.
I looked at it too because I was like, wow.
It's true, okay? I thought Tara was going to do it.
Oh, Tara's off the committee.
I'm not even on the committee
Okay.
here. I'm just
Right
here.
here.
All right, do you need a 5-minute break between, or can we do this? Are we okay? All right. Courtesy of the
need a
floor
2-second
for
break
the
here.
Finance Committee meeting, please. Steve? Sure.
So council may remember at the end of last year, while we were passing the budget, we also passed, you passed a bond resolution.
Right.
And since then, I have been feverishly at work with the folks that you hired to acquire the money to purchase the Human Service Building and build a forensic center. And I have some excellent news. So we went to market on January 13th with our bonds through Janney Montgomery Scott, who won the bid to actually broker our bonds. And our bond issue, from what was proposed in October, we have actually been able to get a better interest rate, which will shave $3.7 million off of our total debt service.
That's
and
awesome.
we will pay it off 1 year sooner. So we got a really good deal. We go to close either February 12th or February 13th on the notes, and we will have the money, and we look to close and let you know about purchasing the Human Services Building and breaking ground on the Forensic Center.
Any questions for Mr. Barron?
I just want to say, I'm glad that my hit I took on my retirement funds helped bring down rates of that.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Any other courtesy of the floor for the Finance Committee? Okay, then we'll move on to discussion regarding Article 13 contracts, Lehigh Valley Workforce Investment Board, doing business Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley. Is there anyone here to represent that? Mr. Kraft. Do you have any comments, Mr. Kraft? Please.
Is there any questions regarding the renewal of this contract? Sorry, everybody's too short around here. We did this last year, if you recall, Mr. Werner.
Yes.
For some reason, it ends at the end of January. It's in the budget.
Yep.
We come here and ask for you to approve it because, you know, it ends right now in February. But what I'm doing this time is I'm extending it out till June 30th of 2022.
Okay.
So we don't come here right after, you know,
Each time.
right after the, year and ask you to renew this again. If there's any questions about the program, I'd be happy to answer them, but
I would, Mr. Chairman,
Go.
I would just say, I assume you're happy with everything that's going on with this.
yeah, they actually, I just got their report today, and they met they said they were going to do 108 people, they did 109. And the recidivism rate is down to 7%. Other programs that we voted against when I was up there had a recidivism rate of what, 40% or 50%? We couldn't calculate it. So it seems to be working. You know, the program started with that $500,000 grant federal grant that put it in place and all, and it's working. The people who are actually doing it like it, the ones that are in the program, they have nothing but good things to say about it. So at this point, it's working.
Mr. Warren, so Mr. Warren, if I may. So they're finding them jobs, Ken? Mr. Kraft?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, good.
And I was initially, thank you, Ken. I was initially extremely skeptical of continuing the program after the grant disappeared, as they always do. You get these grants, and you start these programs, and they disappear. And I did a lot of work over the years on trying to learn about recidivism and what works. And the only thing that has ever been proven scientifically to work is an education, a GED, a diploma. That works. That keeps people from coming back to prison. So this program, when I saw the price tag on it, I'm thinking, oh, that's something I can cut out of here, right? I mean, I like to cut stuff when I can, programs that don't work, except when they showed me the results of this program, it's working. They're getting people jobs, and those people aren't coming back to jail. So that's a program worthy of our citizens' money to fund. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any further questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Kraft, for your input. Move.
Make a motion to recommend approval to council for tomorrow night.
Second. Thank you. Okay, the next is Highland Associates. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on the Highland Associates? This is an architectural engineering service contract. Any questions? I can address Michael, Mr. O'Meara.
Sure. We had solicited or issued an RFP for architectural and engineering services. We received 2 responses on it. It's my recommendation that the contract be awarded to Highland Associates. Felt like their proposal was a little bit more better put together in terms of the structural aspects of the project that will be required.
Questions from council?
Did we? Oh, okay, never mind. Thank you.
Based on
I'm on this next one. So are you.
Questions?
I'll move. I mean,
Second?
Hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, Engineering, Construction, and Management System, appointment notice, PennDOT. This is for Bridge 15 Meadows Road Bridge, no?
I'm growing.
Oh, you're growing.
Sorry.
Sir, pardon the interruption, but I wanted to move with all due alacrity here. The address for Mr. McCory is 23 East Church Street, Bethlehem, PA 18018.
Okay, back to Bridge 15.
Sorry.
Any questions?
Meadows Bridge.
Anyone want to discuss the bridges? Yes.
This is, yeah.
Yes? Here it comes. Okay, go right ahead. Michael, you should have stayed up, I guess. I'm
Yeah, how
sorry.
about it?
Okay. That's all right.
So what's before you tonight is it's to cover it's the contract that's in place to cover the preliminary engineering associated with Bridge 15, Meadows Road and Lower Saucon. This is the bridge that we were able to work with LVPC and get it on the tip last year in order for the preliminary engineering work to start. So this contract is just for the county's 20% match associated with that work.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, questions? Kara?
Will you be replacing or restoring this? Because I think, isn't this a historical bridge? This is not a historical bridge.
It was.
There are some people who think it's a historical bridge.
Correct.
So what are you going to do with them?
Well, it's ultimately PennDOT's determination in terms of a rehabilitation or a replacement. So the engineer that was hired did a structural analysis of the existing bridge. They presented those findings to PennDOT, and PennDOT is currently reviewing that.
So they haven't ultimately decided whether it is or it isn't?
Correct.
Okay.
To be determined.
TBA. TBD.
And Mike, they have a historic analysis provision in their regulations, right?
Yes, PennDOT does conduct a cultural resources study, I believe it's called, to determine if there is any sort of historical significance of the structure.
Please.
I mean, and we've discussed this in the sense that, I mean, people, they need a bridge. I understand.
I'm asking for a friend.
Oh, well, I'm not, it's nothing against you or your friend. No, I'm just saying, I mean, how long has it been now? It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and the state does their thing, but we gotta get this bridge fixed.
Right, the thing is, though, if you replace it or you restore it, that would change the cost, I imagine.
Well, that contract, the 90,000, that's just for the engineering portion.
Okay.
That's entirely separate of the eventual construction costs.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Ma'am, I don't think that we should lead anybody to believe that it's going to be restored.
No,
They're
I'm not
gonna
saying,
replace it. I'm almost certain of it, based on the current condition.
based on current conditions.
I don't think it can be restored.
Yes.
I think we've been down this road or over this bridge many times, and I think
Oh,
we all
oh.
agree, me breaking.
Over the bridge.
That, it's gotta be, it's gotta be replaced.
I
It's just,
understand.
PennDOT said that over 6 months ago, and it's not, I know people keep asking, but I think what's more important is, can we get some timelines, and when can we at least see some timelines where there's gonna be progress? Because the citizens in Lower Saucon and Hellertown are gonna have another bridge closed. That's not our problem, but it's a problem to the citizens of the area. So Water Street's gonna be
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Forgot about Water Street.
pretty much every
Oh.
avenue from here to there is gonna, well, except the one by your house.
Yeah.
So do we have any sense of timing on this at all? Or when this, at least this portion of the study might be complete?
I did speak with the engineer who PennDOT had hired today. We are trying to set up a meeting, likely next week, to review that analysis that was done, to try to kind of push PennDOT forward in terms of reaching a decision as to what we're ultimately going to be doing with this bridge.
Are any of the residents or the administrators in Lower Saucon or Hellertown being part of these discussions, or have they contacted you in any way to discuss their concerns or their needs?
I have been in contact with the township manager, township manager, Leslie Hune. I have kind of kept her abreast of the status of the project, but in terms of input and in terms of the design of the bridge, it's really in PennDOT's hands at this point.
May I ask you, Michael, have you been in touch with Region 5 directly, talking with them about what they're going to do?
Yes.
Okay. And as they give you information, will you keep council informed of what's happening?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's the best way to attack it. Okay. Any other questions? PennDOT doesn't work as fast as the government. Just so you know. Any questions? No further questions?
No, I just know that people in Lower Saucon ask questions.
Well, they always
So I
ask
wanna have
questions.
them.
Of course, I wanted to have answers too.
Answers I have.
They need a bridge. Thank you, Michael. I don't think you need to
Thank-
stay up there anymore. Okay. Essential Management Solutions. Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion to move forward. I'm sorry. So, second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm new at this. Essential Management Solution, LLC. Procurement notice.
Odds here.
I know the guy coming up. Please state your name.
Good evening, Council. Hope everybody's doing well. Those that don't know me, Todd Weaver, Emergency Management Director. Essential Management Solutions is basically, they are our consultant and our PM with our consolidation project and assisting us with the 911 Center finances when it comes to that. The funding for this PM was provided last year through the state 15% fund out of the Act 12, and it is provided again in 2019 out of the state 15% fund out of Act 12. So all these funds for this PM work is coming from a grant that is given to us for the consolidation of the 911 centers.
This is from Pima?
Pima, yes.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Weaver?
Just, are we on target to, I call it flip the switch, you call it something else, but rhetorically, are we on target to flip the switch? And
We are on target. And
what hurdles remain?
We're actually moving to try to do it ahead of the state deadline of the end of June. So we're actually looking to hopefully to do this a couple months before. So we're just kind of lining up some of the pieces between computer-aided dispatch to radio console to personnel and getting all those to line up and actually coordinate with City of Bethlehem when a good time is to do that actual cut for them.
Okay. I assume there's going to be training and preliminary.
There's been training ongoing of new hire employees, and in March they'll be scheduling training of the new CAD system. We send our dispatch supervisors down to the City of Bethlehem. We'll be rotating some of our dispatchers down there to observe. Some of our current employees actually work part-time now in the City of Bethlehem, so they're kind of getting some on-the-job training. And we're meeting regularly with fire, police, and EMS just to know some of their business practice and making sure that it fits into the model and that we don't miss something that may just be a little different of how they do it. So, and those meetings actually have been going very well with the city, the administration, everybody, actually.
Okay, so I think
I can smile a little bit about it. It actually has been going fairly well.
So I see two pieces to this. One is the personnel side, and one is the technology side. Can you maybe address the two of them and how they're interacting?
Personnel, we're continuing to hire. It is a unique field, so we'll probably be a little bit under our complement at that time, but nothing to be detrimental to it because we always kind of have that little bit of a curve of missing some employees and always hiring. So hopefully all that's in place. Training, some people will catch on quicker than others, but we have a lot of good folks, so I believe they're going to catch on really fast because it is fairly easy. As far as the technology, some of it we're at the mercy of vendors and time schedules. And unfortunately, on some of these things, we're also at the mercy of Mother Nature during some of these time frames. So.
Any further?
Thank you. That's it.
To follow up, I know Mr. Cusick likes to ask financial questions, but I know that as you meet milestones, you are paid, correct? Is that how that works?
Yes. The way that the state grant program works for the 15% fund is all the initial milestones they actually pay up front. So after it's approved tomorrow night, I'll go in and make a check mark, and the state will send us a check. Okay. The last milestone, no matter what, is always reimbursement. But these numbers are put already into the budget that we gave Steve at the beginning.
Okay. Thank you for that information for Council. Ron?
Yeah, I spoke to Mayor Donchis. I just want to say he's very pleased with the progress because I was very concerned. It's a big deal, and he said, he's very pro what's been going on. He feels discussions have been very positive, and I know this could have been a real. I have flashbacks to the first time when we did 911 way back when, and if there was anything that could go wrong, it did. So this seems to almost be a mirror image of it. Alice through the looking glass image, I guess. But anyway, the other thing is Bethlehem going to be the backup? We may have discussed this. Is that because you still have to have a backup center?
Bethlehem's going to retain what they call a city service center. That's still to be determined what they're doing, and that's where they kind of take care of those potholes, those zoning codes, those kind of administrative stuff. But in this whole process that we were doing consolidation, we were also doing regional project with Lehigh County. Because you got to look at a comm center that's large enough to be able to handle our call volume to that.
So if something happened to our call center,
right now I can go sit at Lehigh County, log in, and answer 911 calls.
That was my because when we first did it, it was like you had to have a backup somewhere, and that became contentious.
Yep, our backup is Lehigh.
That makes
and
sense.
Not only that is that some of the technology and equipment is that we can build a 911 center in here within a pretty quick amount of time, just with some connectivity. And Lehigh can also take advantage of that technology at the same time. So one thing is we keep reminding the state, not only did they do a mandated consolidation for us, but at the same time we're doing regional shared projects, because a lot of times that's where the savings truly is actually in the technology projects than personnel, because your call volume will always be there in answering 911 calls.
Sounds like Walnutport will get the best of both worlds then, since they don't know which one they want to be in. Anyway, the other question, and that leads me to my final question, which is, and you addressed this with Mr. Cusick, but I just want to be clear. So as we're doing this, technology, I know, has always been an issue about upgrades. And is this a time when, as you're doing this, you're looking at the equipment and we're actually looking at, okay, is this a time now to upgrade as we're making this, or are we up? Was there a need to upgrade?
Well,
or are we
no matter
upgrading?
what, the time that we install, it's always considered outdated, unfortunately, with the technology. But
I mean, I guess, are we what we should be?
Project, we actually replaced the phone system that's in the center that's shared with Lehigh. CAD system is being replaced. Radio consoles are going to be replaced. So basically, the technology is being refreshed in both comm centers, Northampton and Lehigh. And then once that's done, we'll start a roadmap again for funding for the state to start looking at what needs to be refreshed, because it is always a constant cycle, even with radio and infrastructure and that.
Thank you.
I think Todd's done an outstanding job, and you want to stand up there for the next one too? You want to wait?
Yeah, I'll just wait.
We're going to, if I may, any other further questions? And we have to, a motion, please.
Motion to recommend to full council
Mr.
tomorrow.
Cusick, second, Mr. Heckman. Okay, let's talk about two-way communications procurement notice, which ties into what Mr. Weaver has been talking about. Any questions, or you want to?
Well, two-way communications, their contract is for what we call the internal EZNet, which is basically the emergency service network. I guess for just to kind of simplify it, basically it's the emergency services internet. That network, what two-way was contracted is they maintain the internal. So basically, once it comes from our fiber into our building, they take care of where all those things are touching our network, our phone, our radio, our CAD, all our routers, MDTs. They kind of help manage that. We kind of used to in the past, years gone, but the technology has changed, and keeping up with it, you really got to have them on that. They also were the same vendor that was doing the same job last year. And again, this is provided by the state 15% fund out of the Act 12, so it is a grant, it is funded. I can tell you these two projects that I talked to you about, the state was only going to do it for 6 months. And we argued back and forth, thought we were going to lose on that, but they decided to fund it for the entire period because they were claiming once the consolidation was done, they weren't going to fund anymore. And we said, no, it matches the grant requirement whether we're consolidating or not. So we were able to get their funding through the state grant for both of these at 100% for at least 2019, and we'll see what happens in 2020. I'll sit there and argue again.
Questions?
Just one thing. I noticed that this is non-competitive. Are there any competitors if we were to even think about bidding this out? The state kind of ties
our hands on that, because what we have to do is when we submit the grant project, we got to give everybody's quotes, numbers, and everything, and they're up on basically not a public, but basically all the consultants and all the vendors can actually see everybody's information, and they kind of created a non-competitive area on this. Now, some of these, when it gets into the technology, there isn't, because once you're stuck with a vendor, you're kind of stuck with a vendor. But on some of these is some of our argument with the state, and even some of the consultants argue, is when they put their numbers online in the web tool that we apply for the grant for, other people can just look at it because it's public record, so they really can't competitively. Plus, then the state approves, based off of that, they approve the project, and this is for $1.3 million for the 9/1 consolidation, and it has everybody's vendor and numbers, and they approve based off of all the vendor information submitted at that time.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Weaver? He's 22 years of service here, and of the 22, I think he spent 20 on this program. So, wow. But we thank him for his investment of time. Make a motion?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Drive home safe. Should be no ice.
Well, we can in the rain. Okay, moving forward with review of the controller reports, Mr. Zaborski.
Thank you. I have a number of reports to review tonight, but before I do that, I'd like to introduce two people I brought with me. Remember in the movie The Wizard of Oz, they wanted to meet the wizard.
Sure.
And they were all waiting, and they finally, the little dog pulled the curtain away, and there was a guy pulling all the levers and everything.
Right.
Well, tonight I brought with me, we were pulling the curtain away, I brought two of the wizards from the controller's office, Kathy Kuzma and Tony Sabino. These are the brains behind the office across the street. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Acl Payroll, and Kathy did it, and she's going to talk about it. So Kathy, you want to come up here, please?
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. Thank you for letting me present this report to you. This is a biennial project that our office does. We do it in conjunction with vendor checks also. rotating as the periods come up. This audit, or agreed upon procedures, is developed based on testing that was done in prior procedures, as well as, you know, the current situations or circumstances of the county. This year we expanded our analysis in this project. The areas that we looked at were direct deposit accounts, longevity payments, pay scales and pay increases, out-of-class payments, unusual or inappropriate pay codes that were used, overtime payments for exempt employees, and then anomalies with the issuance of paychecks and the employee master file. I want to thank the HR department for their help with this. They were very instrumental in answering all of my questions, and I just want to bring that to the attention of council, that they were very cooperative and very helpful. This was a rather lengthy project, and they really did step up and help us out. For the most part, the biggest area that we looked at were the pay scales and pay increases. That was the biggest area and took the most of our time. We did find that there were 6 employees that received pay increases in excess of the approved increments. And part of that could be due to maybe some the way that the career service regs are written versus the HR policies. There could be some confusion, maybe interpretation issues with that. So that was the biggest part of this audit. I don't know if you have any questions about anything in particular. We did not find any other major findings in this audit. The employee master file and...
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. As long as you're... I was reading about the $50. One employee, you used an example where an employee...
Yes.
One instance where the former director took the position, since it was a county error, the employee should not be asked to pay back the overpayment.
Yes.
2 instances were underpayments. I guess my question is, as far as the remedy going forward, do we have a policy? I mean, I know it sounds nice to say you don't have to pay it back. I don't think you have to write a check, but I don't know if there was a mistake made, how are we handling it going forward? Did anybody say how they would deal with it?
Well, usually when mistakes, what I found with my work with some of the other areas,
Yeah.
the county did ask for money back.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where it might be adjusted with another paycheck, or that, but if I'm just saying, because if we do it for one person, you can get into a whole thing. So I just wondered if there was a policy that came out of this.
You hit upon a theme with the former director that I noticed too. Not so sure she really understood the danger of making exceptions to policies, especially in the context of a government employer. But, you know, my orders from the boss are to follow the policies, or if there's something wrong with them, we look at changing them.
Okay.
I only know of one employee who was paid 1 step more than he should have been, had a conversation with the gentleman, said, you know, I have no evidence that you've done anything wrong here, but this is public money. It's not mine or yours to say, you know, I can forgive this debt. You're going to need to pay it back. Now, let's agree on a payment plan. We agreed on one, and the employee is paying it back.
All right, so that's
I don't know of anyone. It wouldn't even be in my bloodstream to say, no, you don't have to pay it back, even if it isn't the employee's fault, because it's, again, not my money. It's the public.
Well, and I'm just saying that coming from the public perspective. I mean, you or I could say, you know what, but then if somebody's underpaid, they deserve to have that made up. So it's a balance, and it was only one example, and at one instance, and it's not widespread, but I just thought, you know, those are those little examples that. So I just was curious what the policy was, given that this seemed to be just a decision by the former director of Human Resources, maybe on her own volition. And I know sometimes directors within the county, not the direct appointments of the executive, but people sometimes come up with their own policies on a lot of things. And so I was just curious about this.
Very risky to depart from policy in the
We
government.
try not to look backwards, and I'm sure in the future there'll be people standing here talking about the things that we did that they're now correcting. But we have from the very beginning, adhered as closely to the policy manual as we possibly can, and we actually discourage folks from coming to us and asking for exceptions. We make it very difficult to do that for precisely that reason.
So, yeah, so it's part of it's basically a broad policy. I guess I'm cutting through everything to say, and we're saying we're not going to break policy. I mean, anybody could conceivably make a personal plea and ask for some kind of review, but it's not just going to be an ad hoc decision.
No.
That's all. Okay, thank you.
Wait, I had a question for
Ms.
you
Fargo
also.
have to-
With respect to the discrepancy between career service and human service policy, is there any way to begin to address that? According to the last statement, that they're written in such a way that they're open to interpretation as to how people can be awarded to step increases versus annual increases.
I would say that, well, the career service regulations, as I understand it, they have the force of law on us meaning Northampton County. Once these were adopted and promulgated, we're not free to deviate from them. Can they be susceptible to more than one interpretation like any other law? Yeah, I think that's possible. But I've always looked at, when a question came to me, I would not only ask, I would read the reg, I would ask what's been done in the past, because I think that will always illuminate employees' expectations. It may or may not be right. I mean, if I see a clear conflict with what they've been doing in the past and what the reg says, I wouldn't hesitate to go with the reg. But, yeah, I think the regs, I don't know how often there really is, and I can't speak necessarily to DHS and any conflicts between our career service regulations and the state civil service regulations. I really can't speak to that. But I would say, for the most part, the career service regulations are not so difficult to apply when it comes to, applying the county policy for, promotions and demotions.
Question? You done?
I guess maybe my question is for that. You guys have identified, your office has identified that there is a potential for discrepancy, or is that, again, we're looking back at the past and not at the present practice?
For a point of order, so you understand, I think this goes back from 2000 and 2010.
No, I'm
These are
aware.
things, these are, so there may be things they may not even be aware of when you get into it.
Well,
Okay, let me address one thing first. Yes, the audit was from October 1st, 2016 through September 30th of 2017.
Right.
So it is a period back in the past. But the career service regs and the human resource policies that I'm referencing here have not changed. So there is still a potential that a director or manager somewhere could have a different interpretation, that could lead to
It answers the
an
question.
issue.
Interpretation.
And
Lori, further question?
I guess it's a question for the future.
Question for the future. Further questions? John?
Just had one follow-up, and that was in regard to the out-of-class payments. I think that's significant. I think what I see is a number of cases where people were placed in out-of-class payment categories and just remained there. You did catch it, but do our policies and procedures adequately protect the taxpayers from that happening? I didn't get the impression that, had it not been for this audit, maybe those, I think it was 4 people that were in out of class, that they may have been there for indefinitely, had your office not picked up on this. So I guess that's my concern. Is that something that our policies and procedures adequately address? And if they do, are the the individuals in charge of allowing those out-of-class payments aware of them.
The policies are there. It might be a matter of supervisory knowledge, just following up on things, and I don't know if there's actually a process in place to check on things.
I'm certainly aware of the policies. The policies and the career service regs both say that out of classification should not last more than 6 months. Have they gone more than that? Oh, yeah. I've discovered that over and over again. So does the policy, I guess, as long as there are people willing to violate the policy, it probably doesn't adequately address it, but it says what it should say.
No, I just, it's just a concern that I think that I see this as a way for, perhaps addressing a need, and then what was a temporary situation, often, as we see in government, temporary situations tend to become permanent. And I don't know if there's any good way to address this, but I think it's a good thing that this audit was done to catch those, and hopefully in the future the supervisory folks and HR will be aware of these when they occur. So, thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, in referencing the past, that's how we figure out the present. And I will say this, that it's been an issue for a long time. I just said, from this is, I guess what I'm getting to is, one of the big things for councils as far as our responsibility, we sort of are invisible a lot of times, but the pay and setting the pay and scales, that's a council deal. And that's probably, Kathy, unfortunately, why you're up now heavy to answer a ton of questions, because this is a big deal for councils. But this was going on back when I was on council, so I mean, I'm as guilty as the next person, administration, Democrat, Republican. They've all been freewheeling, and people within administration, sometimes with pay, and somebody getting a bump, somebody not getting a bump. But I agree, I think this is a good time, and I know the executive has focused very much on administratively looking at processes throughout all the departments. But I would say in human resources, this would be a good one, because human resources is going to be the key to getting a handle on this. Because honestly, I don't have a lot of confidence, based on history, my own history, that individual departments sometimes grasp the serious nature of a pay scale and who they put in and how they come forward. And we're not always going to catch it. So then we have to wait for a report, and it makes sort of us look like we're off the ball too. But I mean, again, it's not, it doesn't sound in any way, shape, or form like it's a rampant problem in Northampton County, but I think it is an opportunity to look at all our systems when it comes to pay, and can we call it a teachable moment?
Call it anything you want.
That's all.
Go ahead.
Mr. McGee, go ahead.
Hi. Just to point something out, the findings was of 1,096. So is that how many you reviewed? Was 1,096, or was there more? Was it all?
Those were the longevity payments.
Okay, so was all the accounting employees?
You're talking over 2,000 employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how many
We did the entire population of employees, the entire payroll for that entire period.
Sure.
We looked at every individual, every paycheck, and then.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
You are wizards.
And really, if you look at the big picture,
They are the wizards.
There's not that much wrong here. The big picture, there's really not that much wrong. And
all those transactions, all those.
is this once a year that you do this, or is it more?
This is biennial, so.
Twice, okay.
So this probably will be scheduled again, I'm thinking maybe in 2019.
Yeah.
Great.
2020.
Great work, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so, and again, I want to really give a lot of credit to HR for helping us.
Well, don't give her too much credit. I have a question about IFAS. I want to talk about that. If there are no other further questions.
No, go ahead.
I noticed, and you, first of all, thank you for doing the audit. I think it was overdue. So all these anomalies we're finding out about are interesting now. There were 4 things that were noted under this IFAS system. And apparently there were different numbers, there were files that were removed, there were changes in automatic numbers, and some 32 people had blank master file information.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So-
the employee master file.
So I guess my question is simple. Okay, the IFAS system, has that been reviewed and updated? And I'm sure I'm going to get an answer.
Those situations where there was missing data had to do with employees that have long since gone.
Yes.
Or it was an issue with the conversion
Wasn't
back in
updated.
2001
Yeah.
where information didn't carry forward, but
Okay.
maybe Steve can give you more insight.
I'm sure he will.
So IFAS has been gone for a long time. So the
Showed
stuff,
up here,
the
so-
information and data that converted into the one solution system that we use now, which is currently managed by Center Square, was just recently updated. We went live December 1st.
Okay.
So we have an entirely new system that is their best product and that will be continued. We're at the end of life with the old system.
Okay.
So a lot of those problems were taken care of when we converted over to the new system, primarily because that bad data that Kathy was talking about kicked out a whole bunch of errors and exceptions when we kept doing testing. Bottom line is we fixed all that from that date going forward. And while we still have a few hiccups as we adjust our processes to match the system and the new security enhancements in the system, we have a better process now going forward.
I guess my concern was that you're using out-of-date data to put into a new system, and it has to be corrected as you're going. And I can see where this took place. So, well done. Congratulations. Thank you, and keep us informed. Any further questions?
Yeah, there won't be a typical follow-up on this audit like you're used to seeing on some of our other performance audits. The follow-up will occur when we do the next round of data analytics on.
And can we ask you to come back with Mr. Zavorsky and give us an update on that?
You could. That's funny, you could.
Well,
I might not be
can I,
either.
whoever's here at the time would be, if we can get an update, yes.
I think the two people that I brought tonight have over five, if you add their years together with the county, it's over what, 50 years?
Yes.
Well, it's the first time I've ever seen her, to be honest with you. And I've been here 8+, so. Yeah. None of you have met these people, correct? So,
I have.
Some of you have? Okay.
They came to conservation districts.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your services tonight. Okay.
The next one, as you know, we were asked by the administration to audit the GPA. And Tony Sabino did a fabulous job with it. We're going to let Tony explain what we found.
Really?
Good evening, everybody.
Excuse me, Tony, how many
Yeah.
years have you been with the county?
25, going on 26.
All right, so let's just be kind. I mean, it's GPA, but let's be kind.
Well, I felt, thank you all for listening. This was an agreed upon procedures and engagement as well, which means that it's not a performance audit. It means that we are directed basically by who is requesting it, and we only are allowed to do the procedures that we are requested to do. And in this instance, we were looking at strictly the P3 projects, and we only looked at the invoices that were paid by the county in 2016 and 2017, not the unpaid invoices, which are still in dispute for 2018. Those are still being reviewed by the other solicitor for the GPA currently. Briefly, the highlights of this report. We were asked to analyze whether there were any overcharges in any of the legal invoices related to the P3 projects, and we found that we were overcharged $55,069 for the bridge project and $22,000 for the jail project. We also found that there were many improprieties with regard to the jail project, because we found that there was nothing to legitimately justify that the expenses for that project should be run through the GPA. The jail was fully owned by the county, and therefore any vendor relationships are subject to the restrictions of the administrative code, and we found many violations of those. And finally, we found that there may have been many violations of state statutes in the hiring of some vendors related to the bridge project. We found that in many instances, official action of the board in the form of a motion or a resolution was obtained after decisions related to the engagements of professional service vendors apparently had already been made, and that we believe that violated their GPA bylaws, which is a side issue. Most of our report was focused more on the county payments and the county relationship with the GPA over these projects. Again, that's briefly what the report was about. It's obviously was a lot more involved than that. We spent about 4 months on looking at a lot of invoices and minutes and all those types of things. Are there any questions with regard to this particular project.
Questions for council? Mr. Lott?
Yeah, my question's not so much for the audit, but being new on the council, if we were overbilled and things weren't properly, the procedure was not followed, what recourse, I guess this might be for a solicitor, what recourse do we have as a council if we were overbilled by the attorneys? Sue?
Are you asking Mr. Spadoni that question?
I believe so, yes.
Mr. Spadoni's giving you a scholarly look.
Certainly, you have a right to remedies, as you may find them, and that's at the will of council. Certainly, this is part of it. I think that should be dovetailed, if you will, with the administration as to where that's at or where it's not at, so that you could make a value judgment premised upon what you know as a result of this audit.
Sir, with respect to the General Purpose Authority, if the General Purpose Authority agrees with this excellent audit by this excellent auditor, it would be responsible for seeking repayment of that money. The county administration would be responsible for seeking any overbilling that the county paid for. That's how that works.
Thank you.
Mr. Lott?
That makes it a little complicated.
You know, I can't dispute anything you said in this report. I think for me the bigger issue here was the lack of transparency. As someone who was the council president at the time and the same party as the executive, I knew somewhat about what was going on with the bridge projects. I didn't know the extent of the, you know, some of the contract issues, but I mean, I think what frustrated me when I saw this and some of the things that I later learned was how in the dark we were about what was going on with the jail project.
Oh, yeah.
I think I found out about it when a member of the public asked me at a meeting. I had heard absolutely nothing, and in the meantime, the bills were running up here, and you know, whether or not we can get our money back, you know, sometimes you just have to, you know, say it's a lesson learned, because we'll wind up burning more in time and legal fees sometimes going after these. But I think the ultimate lesson here was the real lack of transparency. And, you know, some people do run for office and say that government should run like a business. Certainly there are aspects where you want to get the best bang for your buck. But there are things that we do and ways that we have to operate a government that is transparent to the citizens. And in my opinion, that just didn't happen here. And I'm disappointed and maybe even disappointed a bit of myself for not asking more questions, because you know, it probably shouldn't have been done the way it was done, and I hope it won't be done like that in the future.
Well, I hope that this report is like a cautionary tale toward that end.
And I'll just note that I did see somewhere that PennDOT is considering a P3 project for some of their tunnel work that they're going through, and after what we've been through, I would advise them to exercise a certain amount of caution in how they go about
I'm not sure
doing
it's
the project.
the whole concept of the P3 that's at issue here, because it is a cheaper thing to have the partnership like that. But I do believe that there needs to be oversight and rules need to be followed with regard to that. And I think that's where it broke down here. I mean, I think there were less problems with the bridge because that was more designed by the state to be done as a P3 project. I think that the administration had this notion that they could extrapolate that when they wanted to do a jail, and it didn't fit the model, and then they started doing things behind the scenes that just didn't work out.
Yeah, my sense is that ultimately we will see more bridges fixed under this program than we would have normally. You know, one of the key things about a P3 is that there be some sort of revenue involved, and you know, we don't charge for people to cross county bridges, as far as I know. And we do charge for people to be in the jail, but it will certainly never cover the expenses of any project that we would do there. So and maybe I should have done more and asked more questions, but I think many of us have seen the struggles you see what we go through just to get one bridge fixed here. And I think for me, I saw an opportunity with this to get a lot of things done that normally it takes years and years and years. So again, I hope that in the future more scrutiny is paid to this. So thank you.
Mr. Hickman, and then Ms. Vargo-Hefner.
Thank you. Yeah, and looking at this, and I tend to agree that we have to weigh going after money versus how much it'll cost. I think what affects me, and having this past year, I told council this GPA thing, and especially the newer members, this was an amazing situation. In all my time, I had never seen anything like it. But I will say this, and in terms of what Mr. Cusick was just saying, whatever I thought of the P3 project, the more I read, the more I internalized, that in and of itself, whether you agree doing it that way or not, I didn't see as the problem. It really, I think council looked at something and said the idea, in essence, was, okay, we're going to do this. The state's giving us, maybe at the end of the day, the numbers weren't correct, but that, it's just, and this is a cautionary tale for council, for us all, not just Mr. Cook, but all of us, is that as this branched off, I think the council provided money for a study for the prison, but somehow that got diverted into, excuse me, actually looking into building a prison, and the GPA would become almost this surrogate branch of government which could bypass. So the P3 project, in its purest sense, you could say on an ideological basis, well, I don't think we should have a public-private, we shouldn't do that. But I don't think it was anything inherently bad about it. What was bad is, and I don't know going forward what we do, I mean, they clearly broke the law. I mean, it wasn't just money. Your report says they broke the law. They broke our law. They probably broke the state law. I don't know what the recourse is on that, if there is any, or we should bother. But I don't know. I guess it's just a lesson for council, too. I mean, we're going to have to, and it's with all due respect to the current executive, it has nothing to do with him personally, but we as a council have to insert ourselves. You're only going to get as much respect as you earn, and maybe if executives can think they can get by, there's always going to be that natural little tension. But we have to do our due diligence. I don't know exactly. I tried to find a way to blame the past council in some ways, but I couldn't. I mean, it was, you just weren't told all the information. And I don't know what, that to me is the biggest concern. The money, what's the remedy for that? And I honestly don't know, and I've sort of been banging my head against the wall because I don't see this happening necessarily with other agencies because the GPA was really a money agency. I can't see this happening, but I don't know. And it does concern me. It concerns me going forward. And it's not that this executive would do it, or it's just a matter of this thing got away from us. Yeah. And I don't know how we prevent that in the future. Think, but that's just. But I appreciate the hard work that went into this. This is an excellent report.
Well, keep in mind also that some of the problems we found here were not necessarily related specifically to P3. You had attorneys that were being paid way more than what they were supposed to be being paid. You had people being hired before any resolution was passed to hire them. So it just was a matter of there was a problem on that board, and maybe that's where your solution is that to have more of a closer relationship with what's going on that board, especially if the county is paying for it. I think that's what the thing here is. That it became a problem because for the first time the county is reimbursing the GPA for all of these expenses without a mechanism for oversight.
And that's a good lesson for us going forward. If we ever approve something again, I guess we'll have to hire a team of lawyers to put in a bunch of it.
Ms. Vargo-Hefner.
Yes, I'm thanking you again because I've heard this report before. Yeah. I guess it's less, it hits me less hard at 5:30 in the afternoon than it did at 8:15 in the morning. But I think, with all due respect to other council members who may or may not have been sitting here at the time, it goes way beyond council. It goes to the fact that council wasn't even consulted, or it was a violation of the administrative code. And I'm not a lawyer, but it sounds like it was. It definitely was a violation of the bylaws. And I think that I would hope that you could take a look at this, and that perhaps if you also, Mr. Freund, and I don't know if Ms. Rudis, need to get together collectively, because I believe there's still money outstanding. There's a way maybe that some of these violations could be offset in the money that's still questionably outstanding. I know GPA's been working really hard to try to clean it up and make it better, but I don't know what to say, except it seems awful that it's just a cautionary tale and that there's no recourse for what has been done at some level.
It's not
Mr.
that there's
Chairman.
not recourse.
I mean, there is recourse. When laws get broken, there is recourse. If laws were indeed broken here, there is recourse. I mean, to sit here and say there's no recourse, I disagree with that. If people broke the law, there's examples every day out there where there's recourse when that happens. I mean, is it up? I think we should take a real hard look at what got done and what we should do to prevent it from being done. Because if you want laws not to be broken, you must enforce them. If there's no speed limit on, if nobody enforces the speed limit, everybody's speeding. So if there was laws broken, I think we need to take a good hard look at how we handle that, and not just, so to speak, sweep it under the carpet here. I mean, I'm making some assumptions here that there were, but if there was truly laws broken here, I don't think this council should be just brushing it aside, because that only leads to more laws being broken down the road.
I should point out we did forward our report to the DA's office when we first issued it, so you may want to ask him if there was any recourse from a legal standpoint.
Thank you.
Mr. McGee.
Yeah, when Mr. Cusick had said about the transparency piece, and you were on the council at the time, so was it more, I guess that's a question for you first, was it more of the GPA transparency piece, or what were you referring to? And I'm just curious, because I'm trying to get up to speed on this.
I would say it's a combination of the executive's office as well as the GPA. I mean, the GPA meetings are at 8 o'clock in the morning, and for those of us that still work for a living, as much as I would like to attend those, it's just something that, you assume that the people that you appoint to those positions know what they're doing. This was something that the GPA had never done before. So they, I'd say sometimes you need to attribute things more to incompetence than corruption. And I think this was particularly in some cases just incompetence, where they didn't know what they were doing. Then they tried to approve things after the fact. So I don't think the GPA was particularly prepared for what was handed to them. And in that absence, you had people that took advantage of that situation to benefit themselves financially.
Thank you.
So could I have come to the GPA meetings? Personally, no. Could I have reviewed them online? Sure. But do I regularly watch GPA meetings? Sorry, it's not on my viewing list, but maybe it should have been.
Well, thank you. One more. I agree with Mr. Lott, and I think that we should be looking at taking a deeper dive here, because we're going to protect the next county from this happening too. And this is a first. I read the bylaws. I couldn't believe how the bylaws read, how it protected certain individuals, or, it just seemed like those were like the worst bylaws I think I've ever saw, And I think it was a terrible thing. And now we're victims. Our whole first year of council we spent trying to undo the problems. I mean, really. And I have to hand it to the administration, because they've been working through this thing the whole year, the whole last year.
And in your defense, Mr. Cusick, with regard to the jail project, I mean, if you looked at the way I looked at it, the administration approached actually, the only place you would see it is in minutes of February of 2017, where the solicitor said he was asked to look into the jail issue. They didn't actually pass a resolution regarding that until June, and they had already been working on it for that entire period of time. I've got plenty of invoices from February through June. So it was flying under the radar. I really don't know really where you would have been able to pick it up unless you were digging into those minutes and looking at precisely what was going on.
But there are.
I'll go after you.
There was somebody on council that went to those GPA meetings, and was that not Peg? Did she not have a responsibility to come back to the council and report what was going on? And if she saw that something was not right, she was the person on council that was liaison to all that. So not to put her in a bad position, but there, in certain areas of transparency, that's why we have liaisons, and that's why when we go there, we have to be involved and bring back to council what it is that happened at these meetings. So secondly, I do agree with you in some respects, John, or Mr. Cusick, out of respect, right? For my elders, right? So, no, just kidding. Just trying to lighten the mood. No, but the idea is that we have to go after this, after principle, so that it doesn't happen again. Because you mentioned a remark that, you know, it might be too expensive, like the cost that we put into going after this might be too much and outweigh what we would get back. But out of principle, we might have to do this so that this doesn't happen again, and to make a statement to say that we're going to enforce exactly what Mr. Lott said.
Mr. Executive, please.
So, I mean, you're beyond Tony's expertise here now, and in fairness to him, let me just tell you, all of these issues are being looked at by the administration. We have been looking at it for several months intensively. The General Purpose Authority, now that it has a new solicitor, is also looking at these issues. They're complicated, and they're multifaceted. You know, when you talk about going after, are you talking about going after the legal fees that were paid to lawyers who actually did work on a jail P3? Even if the county executive did not have the authority, and we all agree, we all agree he did not, to spend that money in that way, and really, I just, Mr. President, I do not like looking back. It really isn't helpful. But I think I'm seeing a certain momentum building here that I think, I don't want to slow your roll, but I do think that it's necessary for me to tell you. So if my predecessor violates Article 13, which, by the way, they'll claim is disclaimed by invoking the P3, but a whole other issue, the potential remedy is surcharge. It's a concept under the civil law where if you commit a wrong in government, doing your duty, and you commit a wrong, you can personally be held responsible for that wrong. But there's the potentiality that he'd be covered by our errors and omissions insurance. So you have some potential that you would be suing yourself, essentially. Because you do have that potential. Now, if you filed that case, which, by the way, so we understand how this, you know, our government works, the administration would have to bring any lawsuits in this regard. Council has no independent ability to bring any lawsuits unless, of course, you're going to sue the executive for some kind of infringement of this power I'm talking about, the co-equal branches of government, which we've done before. So that's it. What I want to say to you is there may not be any remedy for that money paid. Now, the overpayments,
or at least an easy solution.
The overpayments, there are remedies.
Well, we have an employee that was paid too much that now has to pay back incrementally.
Yes. Right.
So we can take this from employees, but why is it that we cannot hold the people that are elected?
The overpayments are a different remedy, and we're working through those right now. So
it's frustrating.
It's a contentious
process.
So
there's really two issues here. There's
actually more than two, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you're breaking it down really simple, you know, the overpayments by the law firms.
Right, yes.
And then all the other things that got approved by that didn't get approved by council that were
Now
removed.
let's be clear about something. So we accept the audit findings. I very much doubt that the lawyers who have found to be overbilling us will accept the audit findings as a matter of fact. So there's that, and it'll be the GPA's responsibility to pursue any overbilling that they incurred, and it'll be the county's responsibility if we determine that it's appropriate eventually to pursue that.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a mess.
Mr. Executive, if I may.
It's a mess.
May I?
Go.
Two points. One, I would just say, I agree with, you basically laid it out pretty clearly. I mean, I agree with Mr. Lott, the visceral reaction, and I certainly don't excuse them. I mean, but I don't know, at the end of the day, this has gone on in the past in terms of we sort of assume, are we suing ourselves, are we not? Executive counsel, as you brought up, Mr. Executive, that's clear. I certainly think if they broke the law, I mean, I would like the DA to look into it, but from a legal standpoint. But having said that, I'm not making any kind of motion. Two things I would ask. One is, going forward, and I think there was some when we were doing the discussions, if Ms. Rudis and Mr. Spadoni could work in conjunction as we talk about, especially the GPA, because of their unique nature with us and the money. And I know any actions come from the administration. And the other thing would be that I don't know. I would just say that it's very hard. Now, I know we have a new council member who sits on the GPA, but I think we're almost going to have to look at it from a legal perspective. She's a member of the GPA, not technically a liaison in the sense that she's there to come back. She represents council, but she's actually an independent member of an authority that's an independent authority. So I don't want to put her in a position of having a foot in both camps legally, because she needs to know what can. In other words, let's say she goes to a meeting. Let's say she sits in an executive session, and she comes out and she goes, "Oh my God, that was illegal. I checked it, broke every law." Now, does she come? She'd probably go to her solicitor if he didn't pick up on it. But let's say she's not happy. Now, does she come to council and make a public statement? Does she talk to our solicitor? Because now she's an independent authority. Do you see where I might be?
What does that mean? Does that mean that if she's on the board there, that she doesn't have a responsibility?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. We have a few lawyers who might be able to.
Be like a whistleblower of some
I think
sort,
I'm
if that's
pointing
what
out
she
a possible
experiences?
concern.
She has an allegiance to one board over another?
No.
Can I address the whole
Please.
working with Mr. Spadoni issue?
Oh, yes.
Very often, Mr. Spadoni, who's alerting us to the potentiality of being sued,
He's our new
because
bulldog.
he gets notified.
Yeah.
He gets notified first. We have a
but going forward,
and the Solicitor Rudis and the entire staff has a healthy respect for keeping Mr. Spadoni in the loop on what's going on legally with the county, and probably more than he would like. So rare is the time when we don't bring Mr. Spadoni in on what we're up to.
Yes.
I want to add something to this. I was on the council at the time this all took place, and I've been sitting quietly listening to everyone. And this was back in 2011. The P3 bundling program was a good program. It was brought in, and it was a program that worked. It was proven in Lackawanna or Luzerne County. I can't remember which one. This thing was morphed into a self-serving program. There's no question it was, okay? I do have a question about that has not been talked about, and we had people here. We could have subpoenaed people, but we didn't. We asked them to come here to speak in front of us. Intellectual property was taken and signed underneath a legal firm and not done by the GPA, and that was never touched upon. And I wonder if the intellectual property is still out there, and I'm wondering what we did to deter that.
That's a good question. They would argue, the attorneys who did that work would argue that on the face of the copyrights, it says the name of the firm and then held essentially in trust for the general purpose authority. to my knowledge, those copyrights have been transferred to the general purpose.
Okay. So the licenses have been turned over. Okay.
But I'll follow back up on that to make sure that's happening.
It was evident that they were cornered and they were caught. This thing went off the rails in a bad way. And for those of you that weren't there, I can tell you that the council was not informed. There were things going on. John and I sat through it, and I will be honest with you. I said, even if you sat at the GPA meetings, I'm not so sure you'd even hear this the way it was going. So I have a lot of respect for the audit. I believe there's a lot of information that this council is due as far as clarity. I believe there are people that tried to steal from us, and they should be held accountable. I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Lott. But we're playing with public funds here. We're not playing with our own money. If you want to all chip in a couple $1,000s, maybe we can go after them. But I believe Mr. Clores, what he's trying to say and take us down the correct path is to watch how we pursue this and follow the proper guidelines and protect the county and also protect our taxpayers and what we do with their funds.
If I may, I agree. It's like I said before, I don't think council had a good idea with the administration. Then somewhere along the line, somebody else took it off the rails. But I do think we need to.
It was Mr. Brown who took it off the rails.
Well, you said don't mention the past, but you're right. I mean.
Well, you said somebody. I mean, it's Mr. Brown.
It was Mr. Brown. I mean, and people of his advisors, maybe. I don't know.
No, it was Mr. Brown who took it off.
Okay.
Wait, I didn't hear you. Who was it?
The bottom line is this. I do think, though, that there's an important question here, and that is the position of the council member who happens to sit on the GPA. Where are they legally, and what are or not their responsibilities?
Well, I think that,
and I don't know if
the question you posed specifically, and this is just my opinion, based on my experience sitting where you're sitting, based on my knowledge and training as an attorney. That idea about they're in an executive session, they shouldn't be in an executive session unless they're talking about litigation or the contemplation of litigation or the threat thereof.
Or a person. Well, we don't have person.
And so she probably should protect the privilege of the authority in that. I don't know what advice Mr. Spadoni would give her, but she probably should protect the confidentiality, the attorney-client privilege of the authority in that context. But in all other contexts, she can come here and tell you whatever happened, whatever anybody said. There's no prohibition.
Can I address it?
Yeah.
No,
I just assume that anything that we state in a public meeting at the GPA, I can publicly report back to you.
Right.
And then anything that's held in those private sessions are just as private as those private sessions that we have. So, I don't take notes, and I don't have
You have the
a right
option
to.
of sitting out from the executive session also, if you felt like it, just so you know. You don't have to go into it.
And you don't have to protect the privilege either if you
have to
want.
participate.
The solicitor has a question.
Yes.
Question.
How interesting.
Mr. Spadoni.
I guess this is for the control.
Put your mic on, please.
I'm sorry. In your submissions, you have a phrase that says, and this is repeated a lot, it says, "This report is intended solely for the information and use of the management of the county of Northampton, Pennsylvania, and is not intended to be and should not be used by anyone other than these specified parties." And you put that in almost all of your...
That's boilerplate in all of our reports.
I understand that. Anticipating this conversation, and particularly the report done by the auditor.
Yeah, our expert on
expert wizard in here.
CPA.
That's standard AICPA language. When you do a special project like that, we are required by our standards to put that wording in there so that somebody outside reading, anybody can read the report, but somebody outside reading that report, so they don't use it for a specific purpose and misinterpret what was done.
I have a very specific question. Is this a public document?
Yes. It is not confidential.
It's published on the website.
Speaking of interpretations, from that phrase, you could make that conclusion.
Yeah,
Yes.
you could.
We are required to put that phrase in there in a lot of reports, like the NDJ reports, because we are doing a specific project.
given the substance of this report and its contents, I anticipate activity directed to either myself or to our clerk.
Yeah.
And I wanted your input on that. It may have been inartful to do it at the meeting by asking you a question, but I appreciate your response.
Yeah.
We have a track to run on.
If you want further guidance, you just
Thank
come
you.
see us, okay? Thanks.
And all our reports are public, and they are published at our website, so anybody can go there and get them.
And they are distributed to the press.
Yes.
Even though some
Everyone.
press don't write about county activities.
I think the council's got two paths to follow. One is the fiscal path to make reparations for what we're looking for that maybe was an unjust thing that was done to the county. The second thing I think is it becomes the ethics involved, and I think that you've hit upon some of the ethics. You've hit more on the fiscal side for reparations. So I don't know. Would you like to continue where you're going with this? I'd like to know your.
Well, I'm not sure I understand
Well,
the question.
it's
It's
an
a finite
audit.
project with a finite question and answer. If you have further things you want us to look into, we'd be certainly glad to do it. I actually enjoyed doing this project because it was very interesting to follow all the threads and put it all together. But that's up to you guys if you want us to do further work with it.
No, that would be up to the council. My question with our county executive was about intellectual property and infringement, which I believe there were websites, there were things that were done, there are other projects that are being touted out there as P3 programs in other counties. And I think as long as the county is given credit for that program that they initiated, I think that would be important. Steve?
Thanks, Steve.
You specifically mentioned the website.
Yes.
And I'm quite proud to say that we took that website, so anybody who uses that link,
Yes.
it will report back to the Northampton County GPA
Okay.
website. So that's been taken
Yeah.
away.
But see, the council, I don't know if the council even knew about the website. It was out there. There were things that were being done. They were talked about in other counties. And I think it's important that we gather the information that's out there that is not here in this audit, maybe. Things that are out there in the clouds, and that could come, they could be used to their advantage versus ours.
And we'll let you know about the status of the intellectual property.
And to be fair, Mr. Heckman knows this because he went through it meeting by meeting. Most of this stuff was talked about in public. That's their ambition to take the Northampton County General Purpose Authority on the road. They laid it out. There was a roadmap there of how they were going to do it.
You're right. I was surprised how open, how blatant it was, where Mr. Brown would have said, well, this number came up, and I go and looked at the minutes of the GPA, and it's like, yeah, you did. You went in and the month, and you said, hey, I want you to look at this.
So the question becomes.
But you didn't come to council until you
The
voted.
question was ownership, and who was going to take ownership of those intellectual properties in those programs.
Well, they were off to the races.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one suggestion here? One of the things that we used to get copies of were things like the airport authority's minutes, the LVEDC minutes sometimes. They used to come in our packets. I think what's happened now is as this stuff has become available online, it doesn't come to us. So without it being put in front of our faces, I think we're less likely to look at it. I know if it comes from this office, I'll tell you, I haven't looked at the airport authority reports since they stopped coming to us.
I'm on the executive board of the Planning Commission and LVEDC. I do get the minutes. I'll forward them to Lynn.
Okay.
For
Now,
distribution.
I think he's making a point, too, and in fairness.
But I'm not on the airport
No.
authority.
No, I am. So I would
Some of us older gentlemen and ladies, as Ms. Zirinsky would state, sometimes I know we've gone into and it saves money. Everything is online and you can pull it down, and I'm reading the screen and my eyes are going nuts. I do at times, and I've said to Linda, I need a paper copy to read. I'm an old book type person, so I read, then I can stop, and I don't have to scroll back. I can just look back. And I think something can be lost when in the new age. I don't tend to study my computer screen nearly as much as I study things in front of me. But I don't know. I'm a dinosaur, so I accept that.
I also don't know a commission or authority that would turn down a request of the Northampton County council to send their minutes.
Oh, no, I think you're right. I just, if we just want to do that, they'll charge us probably to copy them, and we have to decide.
No, they could send it to us electronically.
But
And then you
we're going to
can
pay
print it.
eventually for more paper and work.
Well,
No,
what if they
I
came-
understand. Yeah,
What
thank
if,
you.
If they actually came to your inbox, though, you would be more likely to read them. Before, I mean, I don't think the minutes come to our inbox even.
Right.
Right. All right.
And if you want paper, then you can print it from your computer.
Your personal
You could
computer
print it so
app.
that you could read it off screen.
Yeah.
Mr. McGee.
My printer doesn't go with
Just
the
a quick
town
question.
computer.
I appreciate all your work too, and
You're the president.
great job. Is anybody watching like it's a prevailing wage job, so like certified payrolls and stuff? Is anybody getting their eyes on that over at the controller's office?
It's not, Bucky?
Yeah.
They have to be asked.
Very clear, you have to ask them if you want.
We can
Okay,
request
well,
an
I
audit.
was wondering if, right now, if anybody's looking at that or
There's no
not.
project that I'm aware of right now that is ongoing with regard to that.
Okay, all right. But moving forward, could you keep an eye on that to make sure
Okay.
that the workers are
Mr.
paid
Chairman,
correctly,
please.
do their classifications?
I know you want to.
Yeah, plus you have another meeting in 10 minutes.
No, I'm talking about the workers. Yeah, that they're hired from.
Let me interject
Yes.
here real fast for expediency. You can request a resolution for this if you'd like.
Okay.
How would that
Sure.
be?
Okay, well, first I was going to
Yeah.
ask if it was already being done.
Or you can do a verbal, but I think a resolution would be formal, the way to
Okay,
approach it.
I'll take your advice. Yep, thank you.
And if I may, I know this has been an involved meeting, but you happen to come up and give a report on a buzzsaw. That's off the rails.
He already did it once,
I think
right?
they did a wonderful
No,
job.
they did. They did a great job. I don't know if
Ins-
Tony anticipated this, and also the personnel stuff. I mean, pay. Those are the two big issues for us, and I think that's why it's some of the length of the meeting.
I think there were a lot of questions. I think I'd like you to, is there anything further that you want to add to this, as far as your summaries or your information?
No, I think I put everything into the report. And everything that was asked for, I made sure I thought I addressed all of those issues. So I really don't think there's more to add to it.
So this is strictly for us to interpret and draw an opinion or a conclusion or whatever we
Yeah,
decide.
that's the thing is an agreed-upon procedure does not, we do not allow to offer recommendations within the body of the report. Of course, outside the bound, I
Strictly
can give my
information.
opinions of that kind of thing, but that's what an agreed-upon procedure is. That's
Okay.
why I was able to do it a little faster than a performance audit. But that's why it's just a matter of procedures and findings, and that's all that was in
Okay.
the report.
Mhm.
But I think you can come to a lot of conclusions based on those findings and get a sense of where it needs to go from
I'm
what
pretty
we
sure we
found.
can. Any further questions?
Thanks
Thank
again.
you, gentlemen, for your time and
Thank
patience.
you. Thank you very much.
I have a few more.
Yes.
I'll make these quick.
Cash, go ahead.
Will we?
Yeah, you have to ask questions.
Oh, I will say that,
I agree.
that Tony is wrapping up his audit on the KOZs. We should have that
Ah, there you go.
in a
Oh,
week or two.
okay.
It's already out on the draft form.
Oh, the draft is done.
Linda today?
Oh, we'll make sure we answered your questions on it, so Ron has the
It
draft.
just came, and
Well, you'll
I want to
have
make Mr. Kuzic
Hot
smile.
off
so
the
it'll
press.
count.
Coming attractions.
Coming attractions.
Yes.
We don't need that today yet.
Okay, we did an audit of the county cash collection process. This was an AUP audit for the Department of Fiscal Affairs, Division of Financial Planning and Control, Geographic Information System, the GIS, and an assessment for the 9 months ending September 30th, 2018. The first procedure was to review cash collection work assignments to determine if a proper segregation of duties was in place. We found that the segregation of duties provides for adequate control. The second procedure was to select a sample of 5 receipts and verify that they are deposited on the same day as received and that the cash check mix agrees to the validated deposit slips. The Financial Planning and Control Division does not have any cash receipts. The one receipt received in the Assessment Division was recorded through the Revenue Register on the day it was received and was deposited to the county's common account. The cash check mix agreed to the Revenue Register receipt. 5 receipts were tested for a GIS. These receipts are recorded through the revenue registers and deposited to the county's common account. It cannot be determined if they were made on the day of receipt since the documentation was not date stamped with the date of receipt.
Okay, may I interrupt you
Yes.
just for a second? I apologize. It says here, you mentioned IFAS.
All right, let me get the other.
I thought that was dead. Mr. Barron.
Mr. Barron, smiling.
Well, Mr. Barron has an answer for this one.
He's already
I just
thinking
thought
of
I'd
an
ask, no,
answer.
I'm not trying,
question.
just a question, it's, you know,
It's not called IFAS anymore.
what?
It's one
It
solution.
says here, balance to IFAS. So,
I
I have it in front of
understand.
me, it's in writing, what would you
I
like?
get it, it's in writing. That's
Okay.
not the system we use.
So it's not this, it's not that. Okay, so we call it something different.
What is it then?
Didn't we just get done talking about this?
We stand corrected, we will make that change.
One solution.
Ban it from all
Yes,
computers.
one solution.
The name IFAS
That I can remember.
will never
Thank
be
you.
used again. It's like the
That was a
Ten Commandments.
technicality and it
Boom.
was a Scrivener's area, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, made their point.
I apologize, Mr. Oh, you could, hey, that's, you guys fixed that, now we're over here.
Well, this
Okay.
audit was done with for 9 months ending September 30th.
Okay.
Of 2018, so we're not sure when that was changed.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll take care of that. Anyway, it's a policy of the GIS office not to, they didn't have a date stamp. It's a policy to make deposits the same day they're received, and they have agreed to now get a date stamp and stamp all their receipts. The third procedure was for offices with bank accounts, and these divisions do not have bank accounts. That concludes that report.
Okay.
The next one, as you know, the Controller's Office does an audit of hotels for the hotel room rental tax. We determine if the taxable revenues, exempt revenues, and taxes due as reported are accurate. We determine if the operator is using the latest version of the remittance form and that the form was fully complete, a proper and accurate manner, and the remittance forms were submitted in a timely manner. We reviewed 7 hotels since our last visit here. Out of the 7 hotels, only one of the hotels, each hotel owed us money except for the Sands Casino, which actually had a credit of $64. But through our finding, we found the county is owed $13,966.57.
Ooh.
This is a result of understated revenue, overstated exemptions, and late filings resulting in tax and interest due the county. The largest one was the View Inn and Suites, which owes us $8,729. The next largest was Town Place Suites, owed us $3,333, and I will say we've got a memo today that the check was received today.
Oh, the one that was in the paper, is that new?
That's the View Inn and
View
Suites,
Inn? Okay.
8,700.
Thank you.
That sometimes shows that businesses aren't always efficient. They make sure they keep their money.
Yeah, and their number's so high because a few months they didn't pay anything.
Yeah.
So that results
Where
not
is
only
this
in the tax, but their penalties.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McGee?
When are you going back to take another look at more
We do
hotels?
them every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
But
And
they're
that's a
in-
percentage of the amount of hotels, is there 25 hotels or?
But how many hotels? Well, all hotels except for if they're due under $8,000 in revenue. Isn't it, what's the breakoff number?
But you only looked at,
Most of our things are on site. We go to the actual hotel, look at their books.
but you only looked at 7 of them this time,
That
correct?
was since our last meeting here. This is. only-
Oh, you ongoing
just
are
since-
looking at them?
yeah.
Okay, I understand, okay, thank you.
Question done?
My question was, I think for Mr. McGee's benefit, I think between audits, the Mr. Barron's office reviews these revenues coming in. Doesn't he?
It's under the IFAS.
That's pretty funny.
You're the county brain trust for
no,
administration, so you get a lot of.
So I will look at, and Duran, myself, and folks in community economic development do review the amount of hotel tax that come in. And if we see a dip in that revenue, or Duran will say, hey, Steve, I'm looking at revenue. We got these grants out there, and this is how much occupancy's down, occupancy's up, which will lead us to go down and look at some of those hotels and determine, well, is somebody maybe underreporting? Like if we see the Sands dip 30%, what's going on, or if we that's with with the largest
you're not doing a
hotel.
full-blown
You
audit,
know,
but you are looking.
yeah. So we are looking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. Zavorsky, continue.
Okay, any other questions on the hotels?
Question?
A lot of money.
Does that include the Airbnb? Sorry.
No, it does
No,
not,
that's
because he
good.
just said that.
No,
It just
no.
started.
No, that just started.
That just started.
New. That's brand new.
Sit down.
Because he
Something
said the
else.
amount, right?
Something else.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Okay,
Sorry.
we have two audit follow-ups to report on. The first one is a follow-up of the Community Correction Program audit, and that audit was done December the 7th of 2017. At the time of the audit, we found the bank reconciliations were not being completed on a regular basis. This was a result of the jail's accountant accepting another position and his position being vacant. Bank reconciliations are now completed monthly and reviewed by a supervisor or on a timely basis. The accountant position was filled. Since corrective action was taken, no further follow-up is necessary. The second recommendation was the updating of manuals for inmates paid by direct deposit. Those manuals were updated in June of 2018. Again, since corrective action was taken, no further follow-up is necessary. And the last one is a follow-up of the procurement card program audit. Our first recommendation was that procurement should regularly monitor supervisory approval of transactions and works. The corrective action taken now is the report is run for each billing cycle to monitor transactions needed coding by the cardholder and or approved by the supervisor. Since corrective action has taken, no further follow-up is planned. Our second recommendation was that the administration establish a policy regarding gift cards, preferably that their use is discouraged, especially on a large scale. And third, a periodic review of county staff travel and staff training policies. Because of collective bargaining negotiations and changes in healthcare plans that were actively in process the past 6 months, Human Resources is still working on these recommendations. Additional follow-up will be performed in 6 months. That concludes my reports.
Very good.
Questions? How many cards do we have?
You're right.
How many what?
How many cards do we use in our procurement?
I have no
Yes,
cards.
P cards.
I thought gift cards.
Cards,
I thought you said
C-A-R-D.
No, cars, not cars. I'm sorry.
Cars,
Eh.
yeah.
We're under 100 now.
Good.
There's approximately 97.
Okay.
And I say that because that does change daily, depending on, hiring, firing, if a card's pulled back. There's lots of things. It's a very dynamic, but about 97.
Okay, that's not bad.
And there's a benefit to us using them as we do because it saves time, money, checks.
Absolutely.
But there's a sign-off in the work system, and everything is scanned in, so there's total accountability all the way through.
Okay, I said cards, C-A-R-D-S.
Oh, I thought you were talking about cars. I'm like, there's 100 cars.
It had to do about procurement with purchasing cards, that's all.
Duh.
It has to go through
yes.
Steve.
This is something new. Any new card that that's issued is approved by the Director of Fiscal Affairs.
Very good.
Whew.
May I tag on that? If I may,
Please.
gift cards, are they like?
Done.
They
We
don't
don't talk about
exist.
gift cards
Good.
anymore.
It was an innovative idea to somehow reward people outside of our strict
No.
pay, but it was so open
No,
to.
that wasn't our idea.
I understand, but it shows how sometimes new ideas aren't always great ideas. Sometimes old things are good.
No one said old things aren't good.
Baron looked at that issue when he was controller, and there were issues with gift cards, but much of it wasn't county money.
But we're done with it.
But yeah, we're not.
Amen.
How about
The
ATM
popcorn.
machines?
So we are in the process now that there's a new director at Graysdale.
Yes.
The Lafayette Ambassador Bank has a plan to put an ATM machine in there.
Okay.
We just need to make sure that their technology people talk to our operations and maintenance,
Okay.
have a location.
That's Scott.
There's infrastructure there. It's coming soon.
Good. I had that question asked.
With Jen taking over, it's sort of been put on the back burner.
I get it. Thank you for that. I'm sorry. Questions?
Yeah, just one
John.
final comment with regard to the staff travel. I do hope that a policy is developed. I think some of the trainings are a no-brainer. The ones offered by CCAP, the ones by P Corp, and the various state associations are good. They're inexpensive and they're accessible to all. I see very little reason for anybody to wind up in Las Vegas, New Orleans. I don't think that there's much justification. I think that it's pretty simple to put a policy together that would just specify that the ones that are offered by our state associations are ones that would necessarily be approved, but beyond that would require some additional level of approval.
May I tail in on that for a second? Who would approve, who gives the approval for those trainings if they do happen for those trips? Does that go through the supervisor, director, you? How does that work?
Well, now.
Yeah,
no one is, with the exception of extraditions that fall under the district attorney, obviously, and some of the other business reasons that a member of the county government or an employee of the county would travel. It's not going really any further if it doesn't get approved by me. Okay. And anybody who's leaving the state, the county executive and I talk regularly on those things. Anything that's outside the routine, I scrutinize very heavily, and we are, the county executive and I have talked to get the parameters of what is affordable, and I've presented some information to the Director of Human Resources, and we're pulling that policy together as we speak. So I've already pulled some of the numbers utilizing the Government Services Office for the federal government, because that gives us some pretty good guidelines, and they tend to be pretty affordable. So that way we have sort of a guideline and a guidepost going forward.
Yeah, and a little handbook on traveling expenses, tickets, and discounts, and using the government discount programs.
We'll get there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry.
One other thing. I just want to say that follow-up was for the P-card program. We're currently doing another audit of the P-card program, which should be out in June.
I'm sorry, please.
Since we were talking about staff travel,
Yeah.
one thing, and I'm talking unofficially here, one thing I found that you might want to consider incorporating into your policy is how to deal with spouses traveling with an individual. Because I ran into a situation where airline tickets were purchased for a trip and they wanted to take their spouse with them, and it was purchased with the P card. And there were some other issues that I'd be glad to sit down and talk to you about.
I'd be
glad
to know about it.
But I would normally.
Big question.
Pass out.
Speak into the mic, please.
Mr. Barron was having an aneurysm.
Yeah, where was that,
For half a
Steve? Where did you
second.
travel to? By the way, you can always make the arrangements for that person to pay for their spouse separately, correct?
Yeah.
But don't use the P card.
Yeah, just check in on that.
Right, but it was my understanding that since the airline tickets are purchased at one time, if you want to sit together, you've got to purchase them together, so
Yeah.
they use the P card to purchase theirs.
And you reimburse the
Yeah,
account.
you
Well, they were
Okay.
kind of caught.
Oh, well.
Oh, not
So,
Just
and
say
it
it.
was the
She
review-
is the
it was
gift that
review
keeps on
process
giving. I
that
like her.
actually
They were
caused the
flagged.
transactions.
Nice.
So
Flag
our-
is a better
Our
word.
controls
I like
are
her.
working, but there are some things I'd like to discuss with you.
Exactly. The reason, the protocol
Toot,
to
toot. She
follow
blew that
for
whistle.
purchasing tickets and who you use and the discounts you get. Simple.
So,
Thank you. Any questions? I'm sorry. Do you have anything further? Sir?
I'm glad I brought the Wizards tonight. Thank
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, I think.
They're
they
not
enjoyed
glad. I don't
themselves.
think they're glad, but we're glad.
Thank you. We
Mr.
need
Chair, do
5.
you need motions to put these forward or no?
Yeah, I believe.
So,
No, not
It's already
these.
on the
This
agenda.
guy was in it.
all right,
These reports don't even count.
just ask.
Do you need 5 or 10 minutes,
I'd like
counsel?
5.
Okay. And then we'll do the.
I just want to say how lucky the administration and we are to have Mr. Barron. I mean, he is really an asset.
What are you trying to get? I
Well,
don't-
no, he always feels he gets
Mo-
beat up.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm not being silly. I'm being honest.
No, and you do too. You're very mean to him. But he,
Matt's here.
but I agree with you. He is a
I
tremendous
agree.
asset.
I'm not being foolish or anything.
Can I entertain a motion to, unless Mr. McClure has anything else to
So
add
moved.
besides abuse?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll just
Second.
throw-
third,
Richard.
fourth.
I don't think I'm allowed to say.
Steve, I gave you a compliment, and they think I'm joking.
I know,
I
no,
said, you're doing a good job.
Oh, they did. I noticed that. I was like, I don't even have to be here today.
So IFAS is still on the books, is what you're saying?
Because I called you
Not
after
because
I
you
heard
wanted
this
to.
lovely report to say I
It's
think you and John should
it's
get an increase.
yeah, I know, but it's new.
But